How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find
and
it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Welcome to another episode of Anxious Black Belt, a podcast that focuses on karate, mental health, and everything in between. Today, my guest is Vik Hothi. I met Vik several years ago at the Nick Headhunters gym in Aldershot. Fun enough, Nick is known for a Wing Tsun and Kung Fu, but we've been doing a Sambo seminar about the leg locks, which I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it took me a few years to get along and invite Vik to have a chat with me. His gym is not far from Guildford. I think you are in Slough, Vik. How are you today?
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, yes, we're in Slough. We're in the heart of Slough. Let me shut this window for you. There we go. Okay. Yes, yeah. We're in the heart of Slough in the Slough High Street. We were in the trading estate, but we had to move, and so it's a new venue over there. It's about 3,500 square foot. Lovely place. Yeah, and it's a good time. Good old Slough.
So, how did you get involved in martial arts, in particular in Kung Fu?
So I actually started in 86. Karate, Shotokan. So I was watching The Karate Kid, came on, my father said, "Oh, are you interested in that?" I said, "Yes." And then the next day about 3 days later, I was in the nearest karate club. Excellent, old school style, Shotokan, really hardcore club, knuckle push-ups on the concrete, getting kicked in the belly when you're doing, all of that stuff. Fantastic school. And then I got pretty decent. I got my Dan grade, and I was competing. Got a few titles, junior titles. And then Slough, as you probably know, was a challenging place to grow up in. And so there would be a lot of street altercations. I got a lot more serious as I was getting older. And as good as karate was, and as tough as the style it wasn't really suited for multiple opponents jumping on you and things like this. At least at my level it wasn't, or what I learned wasn't. And I thought, damn, I need to learn something else, right? Because it was just some kind of incident every day. And then everybody loves Bruce Lee, especially if you're a 70s child. And what did he do? He's my favorite martial artist. What did he do? He done Jeet Kune Do. Okay, there's no Jeet Kune Do here. What else can I do? Oh, he also done Wing Tsun. And literally, I was walking to school one day, and someone had put up a poster on a lamppost, and it was a small Chinese man kicking a large guy in the throat. It said Wing Tsun in big black letters, and that was in '95. Yeah, and then that was it. I was doing Kung Fu from then.
Kung Fu is very renowned for a clinching and trapping hands. And funny enough, because our karate is far removed from Shotokan, we're kind of more closer to a grappling art than karate. Well, although I think karate is a grappling art now in the light of historical evidence. So people often refer to me, oh, that's not karate, that's a kung fu. So what the differences you've seen transferring from karate, from Shotokan style to Wing Chun in terms of stances, hand movements and stuff like that? What was the challenges for you to transfer into the new system?
I mean, it was a huge challenge because it's a completely different body mechanics, theory, strategy, tactics,
Mhm.
techniques, timing, conditioning, the whole thing. Everything is almost like reverse. Where you got the longer techniques and the longer punching and the kind of like predominantly muscularly driven power, yeah, system of karate. In Wing Chun, you want to close the gap and the stances are shorter and you don't want to rely on overpowering the opponent. There's a large emphasis on like deflection and getting in and making the contest, but it wasn't a contest, right?
Mhm.
It's a civilian self-defense. So that's very different from sport, right?
Mhm.
And very different from the battlefield. Just a point on the karate and kung fu. If people say that your karate is looking like kung fu, they're not completely wrong, are they? Considering San Chin Kata and things like
Mhm.
that from the white crane, and you have this whole thing in Okinawa. So um, I don't know. There's worse insults to be called, I suppose.
Well, yeah, well, I don't take it as an insult because this is kind of karate roots, right? It's migrated between China, Siam, and Japan, and it's like a mixing pot. So there will be overlapping things and different concepts, and everybody's really changing it. And this is kind of leading up perfectly to my next question because few of my friends in state doing a Wing Chun as well, and I'm listening to their podcast. It's Kung Fu Conversation on Kung Fu or Kung Fu Conversations, I think, with Randall. And every time they have a guest, there's so many lineages um, with different, modification to the stances to stuff. How do your kung fu fit in with it? All this kind of very broad school of Wing Chun.
It's lucky you said that because I have a book that I wrote about that exact subject. So um, where I went and researched all of these the main lineages of Wing Chun, of which there are many. Um, so I suppose you have to define what Wing Chun is. If we define Wing Chun, it's this Southern style kung fu that has three forms: Sun Tao Chun Buji, sticky hands, or Pun Sao, Chi Sao, depending on what you want to call it, wooden dummy form, and two weapons forms. That's pretty much it. That's the broad spectrum, right, of it. Um, and then there's just many ways to express that depending on it's not a homogenous style, right? It's not like
Mhm.
everybody should do it the same and does do it the same. It's quite it's a basic style, but because it's so basic, people bolt things on all the time. So for me, the reason why I wrote the book, for instance, because there's all this essentially my dad is tougher than your dad situation, right?
Mhm.
You know, and I hate separation. Everyone always argues. I love kung fu. I love what it's given me, the friends and everything. You know, my best friends come from doing martial arts, not just kung fu, just martial arts, right? It's a universal language.
Mhm.
I like to do projects that bring people together, so that was the book. And what I did was look at Wing Chun through the lens of science of warfare and biomechanics and physics. Yeah, so these are the tactics, strategies, techniques, and this is the most biomechanically efficient way of doing it. If you do it different, then you have to justify it through this lens. And if it
Mhm.
works, if it adheres to that, it's Wing Chun, right? If it adheres to the principles of Wing Chun and it still works under these lenses, then who's to say? It's just who can apply it better in that circumstance. Some things are just plain wrong. Some things are just not Wing Chun, and that people call it Wing Chun, right? And with this kind of like lens that I've made, it's easier to decipher that. So if people do different, I've studied different styles of Wing Chun. Just in the end, it's just what you can make work in the rule set that you want. So
Mm. I think it's just like in karate, right? For the lifespan of the teacher, there are different stages and different things he's teaching to the different teachers. I might be wrong, but my understanding of kung fu in general is that it's a more. It used to be more geared to individual students, so you had less people in a school with more direct. You have to be accepted as a like a personal student, and then you've been given the system, right? So that depending on how many individual students you will have, you would look at their physical abilities, mental setup, and their body constructions and fit the system towards them, or you try to malleable them into the system.
I think you can probably say that for every art. You can say that for boxing. Someone can
Mhm.
come in, they're going to do the Kronk style or Freddie Roach style or whatever, right? But they're going to move as they move. Any good trainer is going to adapt whatever things you've been blessed with or whatever attributes you come with. They're going to make that style adapt to you, you know. So it's so there's that. Um, but I think most styles pretty much start like that because any any real art comes from military martial arts,
Mhm.
right? You know, so and then they've either adapted those movements or those people, like so in China, for instance, there's this idea of like the Shaolin Temple, and people come down from it, and then they were learning in the one to one. In the yeah, mate, okay, in some respects, yeah, that's how it happened, but mostly the best martial artists were ex-military who killed people for a living because most of China's history is one of warfare. It's like 4,000 years. Yeah, they were warring in that huge landmass amongst each other. So the emperor, for instance, or whoever was the ruler at the time, would forcibly conscript people and train them. And he would usually get the farmers and people like this. So people who are like, naturally tough, been working in a field all day,
Mhm.
uh, not much money, conscript them. They were trained. And then uh, you've got this trained population who are trained in combat, who sometimes didn't have money, yeah, or access to the weapons that they had in the military, etc., etc. So they come up with with the knowledge that they have with martial arts, and they kept it to within their village because whoever has the best, warfare techniques can defend themselves better from the neighboring village or whatever. And it's only in recent times it became this more style. They called things a style. Like back in those days, they didn't even call it a style, did they? They just called it the village name in the kung fu or whatever. Um, so yeah, it's that way. I think that pretty much mirrors what happened in Japan, Malaysia, all these different places. It's pretty similar.
Mhm. Have you traveled to China as well to try to reach the teachers that are, because we're all hearing stories about, oh, there is some guy somewhere in China who've got all the secret knowledge, or
Yeah,
in Japan sitting somewhere in a field and doesn't advertise. Did you manage to find somebody like that?
yeah, yeah. I traveled a lot all over since I was 17, right? So since '97, and my initial inquiries, because I wanted to learn iron palm, wanted to learn the things you hear
Mm.
about in legend, right? And you know, I thought it's just all rubbish. So then that's when I really got heavily into BJJ, MMA, and stuff. Because I was a bit disillusioned. I still practiced Kung Fu because I enjoyed it and it was very
Mm.
practical. I was working on the door for over a decade. And if ever anything happened, it was the Wing Tsun that I relied on. It saved my life and those of other people. Um, but the things that made it cool, those legendary things, right?
Mm.
It's real. Who and but I was traveling so much, and then you meet someone, and you think, shit, you're really good, and different. Like the way you move is different, the way you think is different. And then I started to travel back to Asia again, and man, I found some people, yeah, and in the Japanese arts too, I found some people who are remarkably good. Um, some people are not known because they don't want to be. Some
Mhm.
people are not known, but not for lack of trying. They try and get known, but you know they don't have the means, they don't have the marketing or whatever, but they're trying. Um, and but there's for every one person who like matches the legend you find, there's 10 charlatans.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the problem. I think in traditional martial arts, like you mentioned, BJJ, I think it's much more difficult to hide as a fraud because of constant pressure and calling out people. In traditional martial arts, in karate is a big problem because you put the high-ranking belt, and then culturally you've got that respect, and you don't have to prove anything. You can stay in a side of the room and tell people, do 10 push-ups, do this, do this wrong, and nobody's gonna challenge you, right? Because you are Hanshi Shihan or whatever title you assume you have. And I think that that kind of it translates as well to the Chinese martial arts through that Asian kind of respect. You don't challenge your masters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just good manners, though, right? You know,
Mm.
to do that. But I think what happened was so a lot of people they they really bag on traditional martial arts, whether it be Japanese or Chinese, karate or kung fu. Oh, it sucks, Thai boxing and MMA and wrestling is where it's at and all the rest of it. Like like I said, these people were killing each other successfully for 4,000 years.
Mm.
If you think they don't know how to fight, I don't know what to tell you. One guy from one village has probably killed more people than you've ever done sparring with.
Mm.
If they've gone to war and stuff, so they knew stuff. But there was cultural revolutions. There was so many socio-political things that came about that really affected negatively Chinese martial arts. For instance, um, imagine this culture, like I said, been warring with each other for so long, and everybody's really unhappy. Yeah, and um, a trained a trained population, because essentially you've just made your own threat. If you're the emperor, right? You've just trained everybody to get ready
Mm.
for war to protect your land. But as is usually the case, these dictators, they were pretty stingy, so they wouldn't. No one was really eating properly. So then you've got this trained militia, like, oh shit, we're going to come and get our food then from you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they would rise up, and they thought, well, this just everyone got sick and tired of killing each other, so they thought, right, no more martial arts for everybody, no more fighting, everybody drop the sword, pick up the pen. So you had this
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Confucian thinking that went through all of China, and then at some point, around the Ming dynasty, I reckon around that then, maybe just after, um, you had this kind of a designation in society called the Jianghu, right? People of the rivers and the streams. So prostitutes, thieves, pimps, all the drug dealers, they were this level people, and martial artists were also put in that category, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was socially not palatable. It was like, ugh, you do martial arts, right? You're not really going to get a good job. No one's good. People used to spit on them in the street. So what what to do? Yes, you got these trained killers that are very good at things, can't eat. Yeah, so they had to involve like the spiritual aspect and the medicine and bring about this kind of higher ideals to these martial arts practices that were essentially just made for killing people, and the best people were like horrible people essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from that, this kind of like getting into heavy sparring and the pressure testing side of it kind of like went away.
Mm-hmm.
So they have all these skills, amazing body mechanics, and these different attributes and stuff, but never doing any live sparring because it's really frowned upon now. And
Mm-hmm.
then it begins the decline of practical martial arts. Then they got a million forms. They do wushu because they want to make things look nice, and it became like part of cinema and theater and everything. And but now it's having a resurgence. There's a lot of those traditional styles now that are putting back the pressure testing, and you'll see in the next decade. I think there's going to be a big shift.
We see the same thing in karate. So after the World War II, kind of the sportification of karate started, where Shotokan emerged, and we're changing. Let's do sporting safe. We remove all the stuff. We don't upset the judo people because we're training with them, so we remove the throws completely, and so on, so on. But now it's again resurges. I think it's all over the world. I think that's due to UFC when people start seeing that this martial arts and this martial art one person's winning, so we need to adapt and build in and practice again. And same for our club, based on the BJJ, we started doing a good few years ago sparrings on every session, right? Because if you want to fight, you want to fight, but we've got a clear vision. So you said you doing self protection. I'm more for a longevity and well-being and stuff like that. So I don't play too much with the self-defense. Although we do have some basic awareness and training and stuff like that that needs to be incorporated. But that's not our main goal. And I think that's what in karate is lacking. That people want to do everything instead of specialize in one thing. But definitely the practical aspect of the art is start to emerge back. So I do agree with you that we're gonna see more traditional arts appearing in like UFC and stuff like that because they're starting testing, and whatever the reason they do in the martial arts.
Yeah. I think you could do everything, but people just don't have the commitment nowadays to do it. Like probably yourself, people like myself, we're training every day, twice a day, forever, right? And you got these other people, I like to call them partial artists. Nothing wrong with them. They come for 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week. Yeah. What are you here for, man?
Mm.
What miracle is it that you think that I can do with you, in this amount of time? You wanna be able to smash like bricks. You wanna learn like the iron palm. You wanna learn to defend yourself and spar and grapple and do weapons but you're coming 1 hour a week. What do you want me to do? So
Yeah. This is a big problem, and then people say, "Oh, but I want a black belt in within 2 years." Well,
yeah, we
I'm
all
not
want
a magician. I'm not
we
a
all want
magician.
right? So
So
um,
how did you get involved in BJJ? You said that you've been a little bit disillusioned with traditional martial arts and you went on a search. So have you done BJJ and Sambo, or did you focus on Sambo, or what was the journey?
so my father and the other family members they wrestled.
Hmm.
It's a pretty normal thing for people from Punjab to wrestle. So always
Hmm.
that was around me, but I was never really into it. But then I started to do more competitions, and in the very very early days of MMA, we had this. It can't even be called Sanda, right? But we would invite other clubs, and then we'd have small competitions, and it was just like a face guard and gloves, and anything goes. You could grab, punch, kick, knee, elbow, elbow to the spine. We didn't know what we were doing, right?
Hmm.
But it was just, it became pretty obvious that you needed to have some kind of grappling, right? Because people were tough. So even if you hit them a couple of times, and people got tired, and you got then the headlock came, right? Because you're tired
Hmm.
and you both fall on the floor. And I thought, well, if nothing else, it is just to learn to stop being taken down and submitted. So in 2000, I started jiu-jitsu in the Budokan, and
Hmm.
I sucked really bad. Yeah, I just, all those years because I've done taekwondo, because I was young, had an ego, and I was like strength based. So look, I was taekwondo British team and regional champion, a regional champion in karate. I'd done a bunch of championships in Wing Tsun, and I thought, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
I don't know anything. You remember your first day doing grappling, like on the ground? Like, why am I? What's going on here? Why can't I get this big sweaty dude off me? Um, and then I was just trying to figure it out, and I couldn't because I was using the wrong brain to figure it out. I was trying to. I didn't go with an empty cup. Yeah, and that really done me disservice. I was going in and out and out. And instead of wanting to learn grappling to learn how to stop it, I just said I'll go completely empty my cup and learn grappling to learn it, to learn it properly.
Hmm.
So then I was going to different clubs because in those were the early days of jiu-jitsu, and that's, I mean, all the classes were learn a couple of techniques and then spar.
Hmm.
And there was like the black belt would spar with the white belt those days, and everything, and it's just and because it was new, most of the clubs I went to, it was just like a bunch of large Brazilian dudes with black belts, and there's me just walking in and don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just getting killed every session, right? And then I went to Roger Gracie Club. In fact, it was one of his affiliates. He opened in Windsor. And then I started to go to a really excellent bunch of guys. I was training, but still, what it is, I just didn't like to lose, man. I just didn't, just getting my butt kicked every day. And I knew there was, I don't know, it was just something, I just wasn't getting it. And in my head, I just thought, well, because I'm passing this guard and I'm like trying to pass the guard, having no luck passing anybody's guard. And I thought, well, why doesn't anybody attack the legs, right? This was in, I don't know, 2004 or something. So, and the Brazilians were like, well, I don't like it. Feet are dirty. It's a cheap win and all this kind of stuff. Well, it's not against the rules. So I'd happened to be training some Russian martial arts at the same time as well with some friends of mine. And I asked, and I recounted the story, and they said, oh, you should do Sambo then. Okay, and then I was looking for Sambo instructors. And it wasn't until about 2007 I came across like a visionary, like one of the smartest coaches I've ever met in martial arts and movement and fitness. And he was a master of sports, only non-Russian, I think, at the time to get a master of sports in Sambo. And he had some jiu-jitsu experience, but he was a Sambo guy, and he was innovating Sambo because he realized that it didn't really translate over very well to sport jiu-jitsu or MMA. I mean, it was like the submissions didn't. The throwing and the mechanics and the idea of Sambo translates very well over to MMA, but for sport jiu-jitsu and for certain aspects of it, not so much. And the leg locks, there was such low percentage submissions in those days, right? And he was a master of sport, and he was getting tapped up by purple belts in jiu-jitsu in competitions. He couldn't reconcile that, right? And then he started to put together this lower, what did he call it? He called it something weird at the time, like lower limb architecture destruction system or something weird like that. Yeah, he always calling things silly names, right? And me and 3 other guys and him, he was in the States. I used to travel backwards and forwards, and we expanded on his game, which is, I'd like to think that we were one of the innovators of today's leg lock game. In fact, if you've got people like John Danner here, he will say, oh, his greatest influences were Dean Lister, I think. Yeah, Dean Lister. And he mentions, this group called MMA Sambo, right? Well, I was MMA Sambo, yeah, and so were three other guys. So we were putting out videos at the time of us badly trying to figure all these, these leg locks out and everything else like that. So I went back to the jiu-jitsu club, and in my first day, I rolled like a European champion, tapped him with a leg lock, world champion, tapped him with a leg lock, and I was like, damn, I can survive in a roll. Of course, they, at that level, they're so good that after a couple of times, they don't give you a leg at all. And then I just continue getting smashed again as usual, but I knew I was onto something. So that's how that happened. And and then they kind of grew together. I was training both at the same time, and ended up getting the 19th black belt in that MMA Sambo style, and I got a black belt from Leo Nagel, who's Carlson Gracie black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, and I done catch wrestling and a whole bunch of other things. And so what I do now is like this. What is very special about Kung Fu is its body methods, not the styles. They have this incredible understanding of how the body moves, and I took that and I put that in my MMA style, my contemporary fighting style. My body movements are that of Kung Fu, but when I do my grappling, I move like a Kung Fu guy on the ground. If I'm wrestling someone, I am trapping the hands. I'm using Chi Sao. I'm doing all these things. I'm not just trying to grab someone's head and things like this. I'm trying to take their center. I'm uprooting them when I'm on the ground. the way that we move our body is like a whole body chi sao, right? It's
Mhm.
it's quite a unique kind of grappling method.
And so I was gonna ask you that how did you fit that the BJJ and groundwork into the Wing Chun? Because I presume you probably have lots of people saying that all the groundwork was always there, but it was hidden, right? We see that in karate, or somebody does the standing thing like this. Oh, that's like a triangle on the floor, and it was hidden in a kata. No, they haven't been fighting like that. We just now making it up.
Yeah, look, when anybody says stuff like this, you just reverse engineer it. So,
Mm.
karate, to my understanding, was a battlefield martial art, right? Yeah. So, if you run that backwards, so if it's from the battlefield to the dojo, where in that time would have somebody been doing a triangle choke, right?
Mm.
You would have been knocked off a horse. The first thing you do is try and grab your sword. Yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be playing guard on your back when you got knocked off the horse. This is not happening, right? So it's that's why I like the history side of things, because it kind of, when you understand where things come from, these are moot points. People they're just saying words now. Oh, that's like this, that's like that. Really, where's your evidence for that, etc., etc.? Where did that thinking come from? It's just people like to try and fit square pegs in round holes to make themselves feel better.
Well, it sells, right? If we say that we'd been doing BJJ before the BJJ was doing BJJ, then we've got some credit, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only people that have got real that can say that are like the judokas, yeah, within the waza,
Mm.
and probably catch wrestling as well. You can see all of the modern BJJ, ideas. You can trace it back to catch wrestling and
Hmm.
the waza. When you start grappling, any martial art is going to be influenced by the environment and the rule set. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you get two people to wrestle and you say, okay, you're not allowed to, I don't know, you're not allowed to put your shoulders on the mat. Come back in 10 years ago, look like wrestling.
Hmm.
Yeah, in Thai boxing or whatever, if I say every time you kick high and I've got a sword, I'm probably going to kick your foot, I'm going to chop your foot off. You'll start developing a low kick game. Yeah, so the crabby crab
Hmm.
bong, to Thai boxing, and you're like, oh yeah, that's how it happened in Sambo. What do? What's their mentality, right? Why is it different? Because they throw people on their head, right? Because they're trying to knock you out. They're trying to break your neck by
Mm.
throwing on your head. But if your head's in the ground, that means your feet are in the air. So it makes no sense for me to have a big upper body submission game. If I'm trying to throw you on your head, your foot's there. I'm going to grab it and try to snap
Mm.
it. Yeah. And why snap it? Why not choke you out? Why not kill you? Because imagine this: we're in a battlefield. It's come to hand-to-hand combat. I throw you and I break your leg and I leave you. So that person is out. His friend has to carry him. That's two people. The third
Mm.
person has to carry his equipment. That's three people. Yeah. So when you understand the
Makes sense.
motivations and theories behind why people do things, you can start to extrapolate down and go, okay, this is why people done this. This is why people done that.
Mm.
In karate, head is up, the hands are like this, and they go, yeah, but it's better to be like this. Yeah, if you're fighting one to one. But if your
Mm.
head is up in your head, you can see your peripheral vision much better. You can see what's going on to your left, to your right. You can see around you, right? But if I'm like this, I can never see the guy punching me in the side of the head. So it's just, everything tends to be really good for its environment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. Yeah. So
Mm. Changing the subject a little bit, you said that when you've been younger, you experienced bullying. That's why it led you to the different martial arts. What was the impact of martial arts on your mental health? Would you say it was positive or no change or negative?
I mean, made me into the person I am today. Um, Gave me the tools with which to first protect myself, yeah, and then, um, as is hopefully right the case with people who've trained with sincerity over time, this confidence and ability to protect and to look after yourself, etc. These they get so internalized that they become the way that you act every day in non-physical situations as well, right? So yeah, it was definitely, it gave me a path when you're young and you don't know, you're, where do I go? What do I do? Martial arts stopped me partying too hard, stopped me, made me respect um, other people. Yeah, there was a lot of racial and religious issues in my town. But when you're in the gym or the dojo, the kun, or wherever, everybody's the same. Everybody believes the same. Everyone's there for an ultimate purpose, yeah, to make everybody else better, and training each other and building each other up. And it's something, that really, it really stuck with me. And it wouldn't matter, male, female, black, white, brown, Asian, doesn't matter. Everyone was training together, right? So like competition, the root word is competare, right? That means to struggle, to work together for a greater goal. It's not to overcome. Yeah. Um, so yeah, this gave me, it laid out a blueprint, right, of living a life with less suffering.
Cool. Um, you are the owner of the gym. How difficult was to start your own facility, and did you struggle a lot to make that leap, or was it easy to make it work? How did that go for you?
Actually, it's me and he was my student, but he's like a brother to me. That we're in a partnership together. We run it together. Um, and it was difficult because if you're Asian, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer or you're failing in life, and it's hard, especially when you're a teenager and in your early 20s, to try and convince your family in these kind of cultures that you don't want to be those things, that you're not going to wear a suit and tie to work, that you're going to be getting punched in the face for a living. So that was challenging. Um, and then, like, to build it up, it it was just we it was a project, labor of love, right? This thing that I love so much that's given me my friends. I can travel everywhere. I've competed everywhere, and it's earned me respect as a human being, and offered me the protection that no other thing could. Right? Not the police, not my friends, not nothing could make me feel safe. Yeah, there was no safe space. Yeah, I had to be the safe space, right? And martial arts gave me that, and it's something that I wanted to give to everybody, share with everybody, because I just, anyone that was around me that would listen to me for longer than 30 seconds would be pulled into a martial arts conversation, right? And everything involved it, the philosophy, the history, the medicine, the whole thing. So, I mean, of course, it was tough, but I didn't feel it ever. Like the life of martial arts, to be a humble, broke person, going around like Qui-Gon Kane, you know what I mean, from place to place. So I did live that life for quite some time, actually. But what do I need, really? I just needed a spot. It didn't need to be a super gym with all this kind of stuff in it. I just needed a spot that was clean and safe, and that people could come to, and they could really, you grow up, and then if it's religion, people want to feel good at a temple or a church or a mosque or whatever. If it's your family or a community, you want to feel good at home. And I was seeing this whole town just imploding, right? No one was feeling good anyway. Right? And I just wanted a place where everybody could not be like that. Yeah. So it was tough, I suppose. Yeah. Well, it's only work, isn't it? It's only work. So
Do you see now the change because you kind of broke the stereotype within your community that you don't have to be a doctor, you don't have to be a lawyer? Is that kind of made it easier for other people following your footsteps?
yeah, I'd say so. But also, I think there's been a cultural shift as well, right? but I'd say I'd like to think so. I've certainly seen an intake or a rising of people from my cultural background doing similar things now. I think it would be a bit like hubris for me to say, yeah, that's because I spearheaded a movement or something. But maybe for my ego, I'll say, yeah. And it was, right. But yeah, it was inevitable, right? Why not? Everyone else is doing it. Why? And it's a good, honourable living if you do it right.
Yeah,
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 and any parent should want that.
yeah. It was. I'm asking more about it because it was very similar to my upbringing. So I'm coming from Poland, and my dad always was telling me that you need to stop that stupid martial arts and go and do some decent job. Right? It wasn't the pressure on being a doctor and stuff like that, but just do something that you earning living. I don't know, be a builder or something like that. Just there's no future in martial arts, right? Um, but shame he cannot see now that I can help people and changing people, and I'm kind of um using the martial arts as a vehicle for making people feel better and improve their well-being. I think he would be proud, but too late.
Yeah, you know what? Um, on on from our parents' view, they were right to some extent because martial arts, as they understood it, was just people fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what. See, I'm similar to you. So my first competition was in '87 or something, right? I just retired. I won my last championship 3 years ago, so I was nearly 30 years I was competing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I'm so disinterested in teaching one human being how to harm another human being, right? Even if it's for competition, this kind of hyper competitive desire that's like pervading through society at the moment. It's not healthy. Yeah, competition's good to some extent, of course, right? But at the exclusion of everything else, it doesn't really build balanced people, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially if you're like over 40, 45. What are you doing? Why are you still interested in trying to break somebody's arm, right? Um, so martial arts may be how you and I view it now, right? And I often like to say to people, martial arts, the clue's in the name. It's the destruction of the unwanted aspect of yourself, like the ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
To create, to reconstitute something new, something more, right? That's martial art.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if our parents saw that, yeah, then they would understand. Okay, that is a vocation worth doing. Look at the good. Look, I guarantee in your town, you walk past, there'll be an old student. Hey, what's up? I remember you from. You can't beat that. You
Yeah.
can't beat that. If you were a boss in working in some office that was hammering down on someone in a cubicle, if you saw one of your ex-employees there, they're not going to have the same like response to you when they saw you in the street, right? They'll probably throw lettuce at you or something. So, it's just they only knew they can only comment on what they knew on information that they had, right? If they could see what we'd, we'd made from this, I think they'd be incredibly happy. Yeah.
I think you are very right. You mentioned that you wrote the book about the Kung Fu history. Have you wrote more books? Are you a kind of established author if within the Kung Fu community? If you can share some of your titles, I put them in the description so people can grab it.
So this
Cool.
here is the book on Wing Chun Kyun, right? The doctrine of Wing Chun, and it hasn't got like large letters or anything like that, and it's like actual, you know, over 400 pages of historical research and because I'm a sports scientist by education and applied that to the Chinese medicine I learned and all these other kind of skills I accrued on the way. So this is, you know, the most important book probably on this subject. I've wrote other books, but I only released this in December,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just letting it do its work at the moment. It's already changing the landscape of Kung Fu, which I'm happy with, which was the reason, and actually getting people to talk in one language to each other. Yeah, and
Hmm.
this is what I want, and this is why. Yeah, I mean, I've got other books already written, um, but I don't. Did you? I remember you were writing one. Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I committed 5 books.
Right.
So
You're a braver man than I then, because this one nearly killed me. The editing of it took so long. Right.
I've got one of those. I try to write our methodology of karate training, and it's a killer. All my books are kind of more into mental health, so it was nice and easy read and write. But because I'm not British or English, my English is second language, so my wife's laughing it's Pinglish, so Polish with English mixed. And having a editor to read it who doesn't have a martial art experience, it doesn't come up right.
Yeah.
So luckily, my wife is trained in Kung Fu, Aikido, and Karate.
Oh, right.
So she translate my book to English. Plus, she's an engineer, so she's got a grammar and everything. But because she's so busy at work, it takes ages to wait
Yeah.
for her to correct. But now we've got the AI, so it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. I mean, I just finished the book before AI came out, so I was like, I can't believe it. But you know, yeah, it took me a long time, but I've wrote books on like grappling, on the mental health side of things, on Chinese
Cool.
medicine, on qigong, neigong. I've got many. Everybody, all my students, they know how much I've done, and they're constantly on my case. Release this, do that. I'm like, edit my book then. Spend the next few months of your life ruined, yeah, going
Yeah,
agonizing over every word and every picture and stuff like this, and it's just, well, it's a lot of work. So
yeah.
I'll release them when they get released, I suppose.
Hmm. Is your other books, the one that you publish, available on Amazon?
No, because Amazon wanted a ridiculous amount, right?
Hmm.
Just to have the books. I self-published it and released it. But I mean, I can't believe how well it's done, considering I've done barely any promotion for it. So it was
Hmm.
needed, obviously. But I think at some point I'll put it on Amazon
Hmm.
when sales go down or something. And I'll just do that. But I mean, I'm
Well,
planning.
I put the link in the video and link down in the description for people who listen in the podcast format. So go and grab a book and support a good martial artist.
Thank you.
Vic, thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Sorry it took me so long to reach out and have a catch up. And I think it is your fault that I like leg locks in my BJJ as well. Um, don't know why. Only the experience with the leg locks was through your seminar,
Oh,
and
cool.
it kind of sticks to me. It's kind of like one of the when I'm really really tired, can't think. I just grab legs.
That's it. That is it. Grab a leg. Yeah, we should organize some meet up training and things like that. It's always nice to kick around ideas and move with people. I think this is the other problem why traditional arts died, because they became so
Mhm.
insular, right? We can't train with karate, and kung fu can't train with that style of kung fu, that lineage can't train with that. And MMA people, like some traditional martial arts, can really learn from MMA people because they train
Mhm.
everywhere. Apart from jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu is now becoming like kung fu and karate. You know, they,
Mhm.
they're staying lineage specific, and you can only train here and things like this. Um, that's a bit sad, but yeah, I think people should train together and have fun more as well. That's the other thing. This is,
Mhm.
because you're really focusing on mental health now, right? I mean, I see some very mentally unhealthy people that do martial arts when it should be doing
Yep.
the opposite. So,
Yep.
what's
It,
been,
it is.
what's been your
It's
experience with it, actually?
so martial arts are good for your mental health if you've got a decent teacher. If you've got the idiot that's gonna ruin your mental health, right? If you've got a bully and a person who tries to abuse students, it's not good, unfortunately. And like I said before, I think that at least seeing in karate, there is a lot of space to hide and nasty people within the traditional martial arts with the belts and system, and they can operate undetected for a very, very long time.
Hmm.
But we have to change it like dojo by dojo, student by student, by leading by a good example. That's the only way. You know, like you said, you're not the Kung Fu police, I'm not the karate police. I can bring up to view, you know, and I'm never silent. And as you are, when I see something dangerous happening, right? If somebody abusing students, I speak out for it. If I'm aware of the facts and stuff like that. But yeah, we just have to lead by example and change as many people as we can one by one.
Exactly. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's cool.
Well done for listening to all of it. You are a superhero. Thank you very much for your support. And if you could leave us that review on a podcast platform, that would be amazing. I appreciate your time, appreciate your support, and I wish you all the best until the next one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Becoming the most valuable sports franchise in the world doesn't happen without risk. A man who's willing to bet it all, and the players ready to make their own luck. America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, is the story of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones's impact on NFL history. Featuring interviews with iconic 90s players and more. Watch America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, streaming now only on Netflix.